Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk a little bit about my own journey within Anthropic and also how Anthropic and AWS have partnered to build a very significant company within the AI landscape. So a little bit about myself. I started Instagram in 2010, which feels like a long time ago. Actually, it's been really fun riding the subway here in Seoul and watching how many people are on Instagram all the time. So it's very popular here in South Korea. After I left Instagram in 2018, I started a second company called Artifact. It was an AI-powered news recommendation startup, and I sold that to Yahoo. And then more recently, I joined Anthropic as the Chief Product Officer. So this was about 1 year ago, and I'm having a great time so far. We'll talk a little bit about Anthropic's history and why the company was started, and what our mission is. Talk about the partnership between AWS and Anthropic. A little bit about what's new at Anthropic, and finally a bit about building agents, which I know many of you are thinking about as you build your AI applications. Anthropic was started in 2021, so about 4 years ago. Currently, it has about 1,000 people, so we've grown quickly. When I started there a year ago, we were 500, so we've doubled in the last year. We're based in San Francisco. If you're ever visiting San Francisco, please let us know. We'd love to host you there. And the company was started with a true focus on safety and responsibility within AI. We both believe that AI will be transformative and incredibly powerful, and that for this to all go very well for society and for humanity, we need to put safety and responsibility at the forefront, and we think you can do both at once. Many of the AI experts that founded Anthropic came from other AI labs like OpenAI. Some of the people here were the authors on the research papers behind GPT-2 and GPT-3, so very important foundational models within AI, and they all decided to come together and start Anthropic, so the talent level is very high. We've shipped the best model in the world many times in the last year. For the first 2 years, Anthropic was really focused on just getting off the ground. In about March of last year, right before I joined, we released the Claude 3 family of models. The most powerful model there was Claude 3 Opus. We followed that up with Claude 3.5 Sonnet in June, a second version of Claude 3.5 Sonnet in October, and then just last month, we released 2 new models in the Claude 3.7 family. So we have our regular Sonnet, which is a powerful model. It's very good at coding and other applications, but also Claude 3.7 Sonnet with extended thinking. So you can ask the model to think for longer, to really spend time before it responds to the user. And that way, it's able to do more complex tasks in coding, in math, and in other applications. We continue to lead the industry in agentic coding, or asking the model to do edits in a coding base over several turns rather than just a single pass. One of the most common benchmarks that we look at for this is called SWE-bench, or Software Engineering Benchmark. And Claude 3.7 Sonnet, especially with some of our additional scaffolds or kind of frameworks surrounding the model, scores 70%, which is far ahead of anybody else. And we see this very much being picked up by users through Claude Code, which is our new product that uses this model, as well as products like Cursor and Windsurf and GitHub Copilot. We also have a product we call Claude for Work. So if you go to claude.com, you can use it and sign up for it. And this is really meant to accelerate your team. So we start with the right amount of enterprise control and security, because we know that's very important to teams and enterprises. We let you bring in your organizational knowledge to Claude, so whether that is things in your Google Drive or documents that you upload. And then when you create outputs using our tools, you can share them within your team. And we find that's a very good way of collaboration inside companies. And we see this deployed across use cases, including marketing and sales, human resources being used for preparing job descriptions, legal document preparation and reading complex documents and summarizing them. And we use this a lot inside Anthropic for our product development team. So every time I or one of my product managers writes a product requirements document as we're working on a new feature, we'll feed it to Claude and get Claude's feedback and advice and potential improvements as well. Here in Korea, one of the reasons I'm here with many of the team members from Anthropic and AWS is how exciting the current moment is both for startups and enterprises here in Korea. We've seen nothing but rapid acceleration within the Korean market for our products, including our API being adopted on AWS and Bedrock. It's an incredibly exciting time. It feels like we're at the beginning of a huge upswing, and we're already seeing very, very accelerating traction inside Korea. So I'm very happy to be here. We partner with some of the largest brands in the world. You'll recognize some Korean brands in here as well. We've been very excited to have those partnerships over the past year, as well as other countries, other companies in the United States. It's just been a very nice moment from when I started, when we were just getting off the ground and just trying to get a couple of companies aware of our products, to now where we are having many, many companies deploying our models to their millions and millions of customers. And I love seeing that myself. People don't just love the model's intelligence, but also they love how the model helps them solve real business problems. And so for Asana, which is a to-do list task management system we actually use at Anthropic, for them, they realize that Claude 3.7 Sonnet isn't just intelligent or good at coding, it also understands the nuances of human collaboration, which is very powerful. And I mentioned Cursor before. That's a very rapidly growing coding editor. And their CEO has a quote here around how the new models have helped Cursor understand very complex code bases and then make changes within those code bases as well. When I think about the future of Claude, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, I see several stages around the role AI plays in our lives. Last year, Claude and a lot of other AI models were in an assistant mode. They were helping you with small tasks, maybe helping you draft an email, maybe helping you with one small code edit. This year, we think about Claude as a collaborator. So Claude is helping you with work that takes you minutes or even many minutes, potentially hours, and shortening that time. So on the coding front, we hear from developers that instead of taking a big refactor they might do, a big edit that might take a while, Claude is able to shorten that time very significantly. Similarly, with complex document analysis, Claude is saving you tens of minutes and eventually hours of work. And leading into the next couple of years, we think about Claude being able to start pioneering new innovations in science, in technology, in civic society. And we're really working together with our safety teams to make sure that that is done in a responsible way, because the models are going to get increasingly powerful. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about our partnership with AWS. Amazon is our largest investor, a very close partner. I spend a lot of time going between San Francisco and Seattle, where Amazon is headquartered. And I really see it as a very complementary partnership. So we bring to the table our frontier intelligence models, the cutting-edge capabilities we have around tool use, around function calling, around agentic behavior, and the safety by design that I mentioned is really important to our mission. On the AWS front, they bring a hardware platform. You saw in the previous presentations, they think about their AI stack. So at the bottom, where you have Trainium, the custom-designed chips that Amazon has created, we partnered very closely with the Trainium team to make sure that our models work very, very well. So we spent a lot of time optimizing to make sure that you, if you're using our Anthropic models on Bedrock, are getting cutting-edge performance as well. Amazon has decades-long experience in security and making sure that your data is treated safely, and that is a close partnership with us as well. So many enterprises choose to deploy their AI needs for Anthropic on AWS Bedrock because they like that security story. And then together, we can bring our AI experts. We have our applied AI team. Amazon has a phenomenal solutions architecture and global solutions team. And together, we can work together, given your use case, to figure out which of the Claude models are the right fit for you, how to deploy them, and how to optimize them for your use case, and work together very closely on that. It's really important to think about the journey of AI deployment. Many of you probably have experienced this in your companies, from an initial sort of prototype that you might do all the way to deployment and scale. And together, the AWS and Anthropic partnerships means we can be with you at each step of the way there, including elements like the Gen AI Innovation Center, where we partner closely with them, getting early access to our models so you can try them ahead of public release, and then working when you are actually released to deploy globally. I know many of your companies are not just deploying in Korea, but want that global footprint. And Bedrock being available in dozens and dozens of places makes that a possibility as well. We see this manifested in the kinds of customers that we deploy on Bedrock using our models and SageMaker as well. So you'll recognize many world-leading brands here that have chosen our joint offering in order to deploy generative AI at scale as well. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about what's new at Anthropic. It's been a very exciting year. I'm sure you all have had this experience where every week feels like there's something new happening in AI. That's definitely true about my experience as well. Big launch last month that I mentioned was Claude 3.7 Sonnet. And the thing that we really wanted to do with 3.7 Sonnet, we saw the rise of these reasoning models that think before answering. And we wanted to go one step further because the other offerings in the market required you to choose either a not reasoning model or a reasoning model. And often those models were very different. They had different prompting characteristics. They had different response characteristics. They had different latency characteristics. And it forced a choice on the developer. And instead, what we did is we trained 3.7 Sonnet to be able to use reasoning dynamically. So you can give 3.7 Sonnet what we call a thinking budget. So you can say, think for a very short time or think for a very long time. So depending on your use case or your user's use case, you're able to deliver a customized experience to them. And we've gotten a great response from the market there, where we're finding a large percentage of usage of 3.7 Sonnet uses that thinking budget to tune the right answer to the right use case as well. So that's been a very exciting launch. You can also try that on Claude.ai if you want to get a sense of what the thinking process looks like for 3.7 Sonnet. And we also launched Claude Code, which is our first agentic coding tool. This started as an internal research prototype inside Anthropic. It's what we use to develop our products, our models. It's what we use for internal development. And we got very excited about the idea of releasing it publicly. And so we published our first version of it alongside 3.7 Sonnet. One nice connection here as well with AWS is if you're an existing Bedrock customer, you can use Claude Code with AWS Bedrock and get the same sort of data privacy and security guarantees that you get with Bedrock. And we've seen more enterprise customers adopt it through that. I don't want to spend too much time on benchmarks because I feel like there's so many benchmarks all around. I would maybe share a bit of our philosophy on benchmarks, which is I think they are useful during the research process to help us improve our models. But what we really care about is that the models are very useful in production. It's nice when there's both a high benchmark score, but then the customer feedback saying, yes, this model was actually better for our customers as well. The kinds of benchmarks we are spending more time on these days are these more agentic tool-based benchmarks. I mentioned the software engineering bench before. We also spend time on TauBench, which is an agentic tool use benchmark. And you'll see that our models are pushing the boundaries there as well, which is something that we'll continue to improve in our future models. I mentioned, again, software engineering bench. We see our models being used as the primary model for many of these agentic coding tools. And that makes us very happy because we think this is the future of software development as well. So whether you're using Claude Code or using one of the other products that is powered by Claude, you'll get to experience its ability to do a lot of complex software engineering tasks as well. A little bit about Claude Code. It's a terminal-based, so a command line interface into Claude. Even though it's a terminal-based, I think often you think terminal programs are very ugly or very robotic. We spent a lot of time actually on the design of the terminal, so I think you can build beautiful software even in the terminal. That's what we were trying to do. If you try Claude Code, you'll see we've put a lot of fun design details even in the application as well. I've been using Claude Code. I don't get to code very much these days because my job is much more management. But whenever I get some time, because I really love engineering, I'll use Claude Code to be able to do changes to Claude that I've been wanting to make. And you can set it out, and it will run for minutes and make very complex actions and then report back, or maybe ask a question if it has any follow-up as well. This has led to this rise of what's being called vibe coding, which is people kind of using Claude to code without worrying too much about the details of the software in there. And we're seeing a lot of people on Twitter and other places talk about, wow, like all of a sudden I can just start engineering in there or enjoy Claude to be able to take a project I haven't worked on in a year and then get back into it. There's a famous podcaster named Dwarkesh, and he just used Claude to vibe code an application to help him remember. He reads a lot of papers as part of his preparation, and he used Claude to build a note card application just entirely using Claude Code. So it's fun to see this. Lastly, I'd like to touch a little bit about building agents, which has been on many engineers and business people's minds over the last year. First of all, how we think about agents, and I would differentiate workflows and agents here. When you think about what the AI models are increasingly able to do, it's to take a task, sometimes not a very well-defined task, and find the best combination of tools and thinking and answering and human feedback in order to accomplish that task. So where a workflow might be better, more defined, for example, for every email that comes in, perform this action. Maybe there's a little bit of Gen AI in there. These more agentic workflows might look like, I'm a salesperson. I am meeting a company later today. Please go and prepare a briefing doc for me for that meeting. Use whatever tools you have available. And it might say, all right, well, I'm going to probably use the web search. I'm probably going to use some internal documents. I'm going to create a document. I might ask for feedback. I might search Salesforce. Really, a lot of bringing together a lot of tools is where these agentic workflows become, or agentic systems become very powerful as well. We have a really useful research paper as well that you can find on our blog around how we think about good patterns for building agents as well. So this diagram is from them as well. So whenever there's open-ended problems, difficult to predict steps, and when you can't hard-code a path, that's where agents are very useful. It doesn't mean that workflows are not still very useful. There are a lot of business processes that benefit from more constrained paths through it, but whenever you want something more open-ended is when you might bring an agentic use case to it. I mentioned tools before. This is, I think, the key part of any agentic system. Giving the model access to a variety of data systems, which you can do now with elements like our model context protocol, which is the technology that we open source to connect LLMs to data sources. That could be internal proprietary data sources. It could be public data sources as well. We also do a lot of time in our research labs to think about memory. So how do models retrieve, but also generate and build memory over time? And you can imagine that it's useful to think about memory about the current task, but also memory about how this task has been performed in the past as well, so it can learn and continuously improve. I like to say kind of the first generation Gen AI systems were like an intern showing up at work for the first day. They're probably pretty smart because you hired them, but they don't know a lot about your company and they haven't learned yet. And ideally, these agentic systems over time become more like an expert inside your company where they've done the same thing 50 times and they've improved and updated their memory from every single time that they have done that. In terms of building effective agents with our API, which you can do through Bedrock as well, this is the loop that we really think about. Claude understanding, building a deep knowledge of your company, of your action, of your workspace. Communicating with the users who are involved in that task, so asking for additional help, asking for clarification, giving final outputs, and then taking action, because ultimately agentic systems do need that action step. So updating a system of record, creating a document, sending an email, resolving a customer service ticket alongside its tools, and thinking about this entire loop where that action might update the memory store. When we think of that, understanding, acting, and communicating, these are three words that you'll hear a lot inside Anthropic as we think about these agentic systems. And to start wrapping up, a little bit about what we're thinking about on our developer roadmap. I mentioned agents. It is high on our mind, not just because it is a trend this year, but also because we think it's how we unlock big use cases for Gen AI. We want to connect your proprietary data in a secure way to Claude models so that you can have really impactful business results rather than just generic answers. I mentioned the model context protocol. That's one way in which we are doing that. And really thinking about how to optimize the cost over time here. We want Claude models to be a platform that you can scale on as well, and not just use for your highest end use cases, but also the use cases you might deploy for every customer, for example. We're working on elements like our Agentic Tasks API, where you'll be able to define more complex requests to Claude that run asynchronously. So not just getting a quick answer back from the API, but also running longer horizon tasks using our Tasks API. And then we're also expanding the ability for Claude to be able to work in the background on things like computer use, which is Claude's ability to use computers and use a mouse and keyboard, as well as use a REPL, so basically be able to write code and execute code in a secure sandbox not while you're waiting for it, right at the screen, but in an asynchronous way. So you'll see our API develop to be able to encompass more of these use cases. And we also want to make sure that any data that you bring into Claude, you're able to use the most of. So expanding the window in which data can make it into Claude, expanding the types of inputs that you can bring in, more and more images, complex multimodal PDFs, and being able to retrieve across all of these as well. And finally, I mentioned cost savings as an important aspect that we think about. We released prompt caching, which can reduce your cost up to 90% if you have repeated tokens in your GenAI use cases. We are about to release something we call token-efficient tool use, which reduces the number of tokens needed to use complex tools inside Claude. And then we also are offering model distillation via AWS Bedrock, which means you can save money by using a smaller model, being really tuned for your purposes by taking a larger model as a teacher model and having a smaller model as a learning model. So hopefully this was a nice walkthrough of Anthropic's background, why we exist, how we partner with AWS in many complex cases, why we might be a good fit for your company, and some of the exciting things that we are working on at Anthropic with what's next. Thank you all so very much.